Welcome into another edition of the Real Ballz podcast. It has been a very eventful 5 days since our last show. I hope all of you had a fantastic Thanksgiving and got to catch up on some of this bowling news that's been happening left and right. But I want to start off by recapping what's happened since the last show and remind you guys to check out a couple things. First off, we had a Player of the Year announcement and Rookie of the Year announcement. Yes, the last show was last Wednesday, so it has felt like a long time ago that this was announced, but in reality, it has been only about 5 days. But we had Player of the Year, Andrew Anderson, announced, and Rookie of the Year, Cameron Doyle, announced. Both EBI guys, both currently having fantastic seasons comparable, especially to their previous seasons. But we also had our Battle of the Ballz announcement. If you didn't get to catch my video, in about a day and a half, it had almost 3,000 viewers where I took a 3D model or a board and I marked off and showed everybody how the Battle of the Ballz would be different than any other ball review show out there and how the Ballz Bowling Network is going to launch this show in January. It's going to be a game changer. So, we also put out, and in case you didn't catch it, it's on my personal page, as well as my group page for the Real Ballz podcast, the Kyle Troop interview. Now, if you were paying attention last week to the show, you know that we had some technical difficulties getting him on camera, but I did an audio interview with him. It was about 30 minutes long, and he was very cool in the interview. We were able to discuss what countries have the prettiest girls, who his favorite superhero was, as well as a lot of other bowling-related material. So make sure to check that out if you haven't got to check that out already. But I want to dive in to a couple of things that I just covered, one of which is the Rookie of the Year. Now, as I stated, I congratulate Cameron Doyle on being Rookie of the Year. I think it's fantastic. He's come a long way, particularly since he first came on tour when he was like 12 years old. But that led me to my next kind of issue that I had with it, was that Cameron Doyle has been on tour for many years, but he has never completed a full season. This was his first full season. He didn't compete full-time while he was in college, and that made him eligible for Rookie of the Year. And I had nothing against Cameron Doyle. I actually was happy for him. Good for him, you know. He's getting better. He's seeing improvement. Nobody wants to continue out there if they're not improving. But my biggest issue was simply that the PBA's policy on that, which is going to change, obviously, because you have to be a PBA member in order to compete in many of these events. But my biggest issue was that, you know, when you factor in that Cameron's been out so long, he's been out for about 2011, I believe, was his first year. So you figure in his first 6 years, roughly, he competed in, I want to say it was 26 events, roughly. But in his last year alone, he competed in 28. So that equated to him being considered a full-time player, a full-time competitor eligible of winning the Rookie of the Year award. But is it fair to the other people that are rookies that maybe haven't competed in near as many events to say, hey, we know this guy's competed in nearly a full season over the last X amount of years? I mean, even though he never competed in a full season, you could argue that Cameron Doyle was a veteran. I mean, he's been out there so long that you could argue that he's a veteran, in that, you know, these other guys that are rookies, maybe they didn't get necessarily the fair shot that they should have had because they competed against him in the Rookie of the Year race. And I think that's the biggest issue that I had with it, was not that it was Cameron, but it was the PBA's policy of basically saying to him, yeah, we're going to count you as a rookie because it's your first full season, but we know that you've competed over the last 6 years in nearly an entire season. You know, another way to put that is, if he bowled in 54 events, he had a 54 event rookie season. You know, it's much easier when you're competing on the PBA to develop comfort after X amount of events, getting better. It's much easier to improve versus somebody who comes out and maybe only bowled 2 events before they ever competed on tour full time. That person could be considered a rookie, but only has 30 total events with the 2 they previously bowled in and then 28 more. that would be 30 total events, compared to somebody who's got 56 over the last 6 years. So I congratulate him. I really do. And I wish him all the success in the world. But at the same time, I think that the PBA is going to do great things with their, have to have a PBA card requirements to compete in events, because it will prevent things like this from happening where somebody competes and signs a waiver and, basically doesn't have to any longer. They can sign a waiver, they can compete, but it doesn't count towards their rookie year. I mean, essentially you could have 10 years of not competing full-time on tour under this rule, and then when you finally go compete full-time, knock them dead, win rookie of the year and player of the year in the same year. I mean, it's not that far off when you look at the ages of these people that are winning player of the year, which leads me to my next point. Andrew Anderson, man, that kid is killing it. You talk about bowling well. He is bowling absolutely fantastic. And if you really look at it, when you look at Andrew Anderson's stats recently, so he just competed, he just was announced as player of the year, right? And so that's a huge honor in itself. And he's young, he's not very old. He's still eligible to, be on tour for years and years to come. But Andrew Anderson has had a season that would be very similar to EJ Belmo, EJ in 2016, Belmo in, 2017. He had a great year where he won, 2 out of the 3 majors. So, you look at it and those guys have had killer years, and Andrew Anderson is on pace to have one of those years. It just proves my biggest point that I always try to stress to people whenever they're asking about bowling balls or they're asking about getting better or improving, that confidence is pivotal. So one of the biggest issues I have is that people think that a new ball is what's going to make them better. People think that, if I practice this way, it's going to make me better. Things of that nature. But the fact is that what's going to make people better, and what I always tell people will make them better, is confidence. The more confidence you have in anything, whether it's bowling, whether it's business, whatever it is, when you walk into something and you're confident, you're going to have success. Now, people say that they're in a slump. A slump is a lack of confidence, but slumps don't cause lack of confidence. Oftentimes, lack of confidence causes slumps. So when you are bowling well, and Andrew Anderson proves this, and EJ proved it as well, Belmo proved it as well, when you're bowling well, you continue to bowl well because of the fact that you have such high confidence. You have the ability in your mind is set that you can go out and compete against anybody across the world and that you can win. And that's a big deal. Knowing that you can not just go out and compete, but that you can win, that is a really big deal. And when you look at what Andrew Anderson has done over the last year, winning the Masters, winning Player of the Year, and then it carried over directly to the World Championships in Hong Kong. He went out and shot 1473 for 6 games at the World Championships, with games 2, 3, and 4 being 279, 278, 300. For those of you out there that are not great at math, that's an 857 total for 3 games. So on a world's stage representing Team USA, he goes out, shoots 857 in competition days after being announced as PBA Player of the Year. That is what I would call a pretty impressive couple weeks, a real confidence builder. If nothing else, another way for him to just continue to build his confidence and say, hey, I'm going to knock him dead. And at the Worlds, you got the December 1st singles semifinal. You're going to have Andrew Anderson, Kyle Troop, you got Dan McClellan from Canada, and you got Rafiq Ismail, and I believe he's from Malaysia. I'd have to double check that, but I'm pretty sure it's Malaysia or Singapore, one of those two. But I also want to get into, I saw a lot of things going on Facebook and Twitter for Thanksgiving. And I'm sure a lot of you know what I'm talking about. The Thanksgiving Day Parade. So for the first time this year, at the Thanksgiving Day Parade in New York, the BPAA, Go Bowling, Strike 10 Entertainment, they put out a float for the parade. And I saw some things on social media that were both good and bad. They were good in the sense of a lot of people were really happy to see it. They were bad in the sense that I've had some people bring up some what I would call valid points, but bad arguments is what I would basically explain it as. So I'm going to dive into that. I'm going to cover kind of those arguments as well as both sides of this spectrum. So if you look at the Macy's parade, you have what they report as 50 million people, but Nielsen actually reports it closer to 24 million viewers that watch the Macy's parade each year. Now, this year was the coldest year in the history of the parade, but with each opinion, the one I heard the most was how great the exposure is for the sport of bowling to have that float. And then the other one I heard against it was the cost of the float, the cost of what it brought in, as far as viewers. But also the biggest thing that I heard was it's not going to make anyone go bowling. But if you really break it down, I want to break it down and kind of go into a couple of different things. So when you break down 24 million viewers, I'm going to tell you that CBS reports the cost of a float for the first year to be anywhere between $220,000 and $280,000, depending on how much money is spent on the float itself. They reported as $190,000 to enter the float for the first year, and $30,000 to $90,000 to make the float itself. So when you factor in that cost by those viewers, it comes out to about a penny a penny a viewer. So cost-wise, the cost argument's not great. And if you really look at how it's broken down in cost, the BPAA and Go Bowling, they paid for this. Strike 10 Marketing, they paid for this. And their budget each year is roughly about $20 million. So it's a significant budget. But if you're going to be upset about marketing, there's some other areas that you could really look at and say, that doesn't make sense. But overall, I think the exposure was great. And I think a lot of what you see as far as that exposure, I think you see a lot of people who are out there and they're saying, oh, look at all the people online who are talking about it. Keep into perspective that on social media, when you see all those people online that are talking about it, the odds are that if you're watching this show or if you notice bowling, the odds are you're a bowler. And so that says right there that you probably have on your friends list other bowlers as well. So when you see that pop up on your wall or on your feed or whatever it is, the more likely scenario is that you are seeing other people that have similar interests to you. If you were a basketball player, you may not see the bowling pop up on your social media, and so it may not be as celebrated on your social media walls and feeds and whatnot. So don't get overly excited when you see, all these people were talking about this on social media. Yeah, but they were all bowlers. And so naturally they're going to notice it. They're going to pay attention to it, which isn't a bad thing. But at the same time, keep it into perspective. That's my biggest argument. Now, if you want to be upset about marketing, there's a couple of areas you could really look at. And this is what I'm going to kind of break down so that you understand that the marketing aspect is good and bad in both departments. So while the Thanksgiving Day parade was actually a pretty good overall investment for exposure, when you factor in the cost compared to the people that view it, if you really want to break down the cost, so when you look at some of the other partnerships that they have, so the BPAA partners each year with NASCAR through Strike 10 Entertainment. They partner with NASCAR, whether it's through teams, races, through the PWBA. There's numerous sponsorships. The PWBA has their own event at Richmond. They've sponsored the Richmond Xfinity race. They sponsored the Monster Series at Watkins Glen this year. But the cost of sponsoring races, the cost of sponsoring teams is very, very large. Now, is it a big market? Yeah, it's a good sized market, but here's where it gets tricky. So there was a survey that was done called the Go Bowling Research Study. And the Go Bowling research study was conducted in 2016, and you can actually find it on Strike 10's website. And it was conducted in 2016, and it asked people, and I'm going to pull this directly up so I don't get it wrong. It asked people what it is that you find to be a good partnership for bowling to where it would make you want to go bowling more. And that's what they were wanting. What affiliation can bowling make with another sport that will make you go bowling? And at the very bottom, the last three were 9% said none of the above. Or I'm sorry, 9% said NASCAR. 5% said the PGA or LPGA. And then 52% overwhelmingly said none of the above. So of those 52%, think about what the Thanksgiving Day Parade is. It's not a sporting event. It doesn't include NFL, baseball, basketball, none of that. It is none of the above. So they actually marketed towards the audience that fits none of the above. But NASCAR is third to last on marketing partnerships at 9%. Okay. And that to me stands out because if you think of the cost of what it costs to sponsor a NASCAR race, a NASCAR event, a NASCAR team, the cost for only a 9% rating, you could look at many other avenues of saying, okay, well, this would be a better use of those funds. And it's the BPAA, like I said, and they've got extra funds, so it's not like it's something that is gonna break the bank. It's good for the P.W.B.A. because they get to have their event at Richmond, but I don't honestly think that when it comes to making bowling more aware and making more bowlers, creating more bowlers, I don't necessarily think it has that big of an impact. And that would be the biggest argument for the Macy's parade is that, while it brings awareness to the sport of bowling, do people who are not bowlers notice it? Do people look at that and go, oh, what a cute float, I'm going to go bowling now? And I think that's something that we really have to look at is what makes people go bowl. And I don't think NASCAR teams do. I don't think, parades do. I think it has to be something, that is driving these people to bowl. But at the same time, you can't not market. And if you're going to look at marketing dollars for the value, Thanksgiving Day Parade is a much better value than the NASCAR event. So, like I said, there's been other ways of marketing, but I just don't see NASCAR with only a 9% rating in their latest survey as being a valid, way of making money work for you and build up bowlers. Now, the PBA and PWBA sponsorships, see those right there, that's a little different as well, because if you look at that, who watches the PBA? Most likely, the PBA and the PWBA in particular are watched by people who are already bowlers. So bringing in a new audience is difficult. It's very hard to bring in a new audience and bring in new people. And I don't think that we should necessarily knock the Thanksgiving Day Parade simply because of the fact that those are most likely new people. And so why not market to those new people? NASCAR, I don't see a lot of value in the NASCAR partnership. The survey didn't see a lot of value in the NASCAR partnership. The other issue that I saw was with the GoBowling.com, which is the BPAA's, advertising arm as well as, the marketing arm of Strike 10. And it's called GoBowling.com. And some of their statistics are actually very bad. While they're getting better, only 7% of people have ever heard of GoBowling.com according to this survey. Now, what is GoBowling.com? They're the people who used to put the coupons on the back of your, Tony's Pizza or on the back of your TV dinner or whatever it was. They're the ones that have set their mission to build the sport of bowling and to get people to go out and start bowling. But unfortunately, only 7% of people in this survey have ever even heard of GoBowling.com. And of that 7%, only 33% of them are actually heavy bowlers. So 7% of people have actually ever heard of this website, 33% of which are heavy bowlers. So it's not exactly great statistics, and that's a great place that can be worked on is GoBowling.com, which subsequently was as well part of the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. So if it got people to go to GoBowling.com, then I would again call that a win, especially over a NASCAR race, even though Go Bowling was a title sponsor to that. Now, GoBowling.com continues to grow. It averages about 1 million page views per year. Now, that is a 3-year, they basically reported 3 million total page views over 3 years, but that's about 1 million a year, and it's not a ton, but from everything that I saw in the report, it continues to grow. So we need to make sure that we don't think like, everybody else and think, okay, well, we only want to market to bowlers. Marketing to your regular audience does not necessarily help at all. You want to market towards those people that you want to get that you don't have. And I think that's one of the biggest issues in today's business is that so many bowlers think, well, how's that going to help get a bowler? How's that going to help build bowling or, whatever it is? The fact of the matter is by constantly marketing to the same group of people, you're not helping the sport of bowling at all. You're not building it at all. You're simply marketing to people who already do it. And as that market shrinks, you're going to have less and less bowlers. So I think that what they're doing is actually a pretty good thing. I think that going outside of sports to market is actually a really good thing, especially when you want to bring in people who don't already participate in the game. Bring in new people, new, ideas. You're going to create an entire new generation of bowlers if you continuously put the idea and the thought of bowling in front of them. So I don't think it's a bad idea. I think the Thanksgiving Day parade was good. I do want to discuss one last thing, and I want to cover it again. The Battle of the Ballz. If you didn't get to catch the video that I put out on Friday, make sure to check that out. It's really cool. It's got a great concept. For those of you that didn't see the video, you can check out a 3D image of the show set of what the lane's going to look like. I put up a 3D image that basically shows the camera locations. It shows the lighting locations. It shows all kinds of stuff. The concepts discussed as well. This show right here is going to premiere in January. It's going to be awesome. It is going to change the way we view bowling ball reviews. And it's really going to help those, and people ask me why I did. It's going to help those who don't necessarily understand that maybe it can appeal to everybody, but those who don't understand what it is that they are supposed to be looking for. What makes this ball different than that ball? That's what it's going to do. It'll appeal to everybody, whether you're a pro shop operator who wants to show your customer, or you're a pro shop operator who wants to watch the video with multiple angles and form your own opinion. A bowler who's getting ready to buy a bowling ball, it can appeal to anybody who's getting ready to buy a bowling ball. If you're wanting to purchase a ball and you want to know what the pro shop operator is talking about, you are trying to decipher what it is for yourself, it can appeal to anybody out there that is interested in purchasing a ball, and that's something that I think is going to really be a big deal because, like I said, it's going to change the way we view ball reviews, because ball reviews in the past have always been relatively biased, representing your company, employees representing their employer. But with this being said, these are multiple styles of people, not just a high rev player or a low rev player. Jason Belmonte, EJ Tackett, Andrew Anderson, those guys make every ball look good. They're not your average bowler. So having people who are more relatable in their styles, whether it's high rev, low rev, medium rev, they're going to be covered. And then that way you can see how a ball would most likely react more so for you than for somebody who is on the tour or on staff. You'll get an honest answer, an honest, reply as to what that ball is doing. And the biggest thing is you're going to get multiple angles. It's not going to be an angle from behind, watching someone throw a ball. It's not going to be an angle of just someone rolling the ball down the lane and them watching you from the camera being in front. Instead, you're going to have multiple camera angles with 10 total cameras being able to tell you, okay, from 30 to 40 feet, the ball reacts this much. It moved in this way. From 20 to 30 feet, the ball reacted this way, the player left off the player's hand in this position. You're going to be able to see and decipher everything there is to decipher about each and every ball that the manufacturer is releasing. And not only that, it creates competition. It's not just one ball. it's this ball from this manufacturer against this ball from this manufacturer, and what may work for a high rev player and win the battle may lose the battle against for a low rev player, because every ball is not going to work for everybody. And that's the biggest thing I want to stress, is that everybody is different. Every ball is going to be a little bit different. And I think that that is something that we really have to, accentuate and show in this show. And I think that it's going to really make a big impact on the sport of bowling moving forward. But, like I said, we're looking for sponsors. We've already got a few. And so that's really cool and exciting that we've got some sponsors lined up. We could always use some more sponsors, as well as sponsoring any of the other shows that are on the network. That'll be really, really cool and allow us to make more and more content. So I think that we've got a very exciting first of the year, very exciting 2019 coming. And like I said, if you're interested in getting a sponsorship packet, if you're interested in, coming up with some show ideas, as well as anything else that you might have, any questions or whatnot, just shoot me a message. I'll be happy to answer them. Other than that, we're back to the normal schedule, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 5 p.m. Got an awesome show planned for Wednesday. And don't forget to check out the Kyle Troop interview video. Don't forget to check out our Battle of the Balls preview video. And I will see you all on Wednesday. Thank you for joining me. This is the Real Ballz Podcast. I'm Ryan Squires. Don't forget to check out everything like our YouTube page, Twitter page, and everything else. Other than that, I'll see you Wednesday and 5 p.m. I'm Ryan Squires. Have a good and safe Monday evening. Watch some football and enjoy.